you for that. We're going to continue this conversation right now. I want to bring in Emily Parker, global macro editor at Coindesk. Kate just really, explained where things stand in terms of just how much trading is going on and really just how broad it's becoming. My question to you is, how dependent on Bitcoin continuing to rise or at least remain somewhat steady, as volatile as it is, are all the other cryptocurrencies dependent upon?
I'm sorry, how much are the other cryptocurrencies dependent on Bitcoin?
Yes, meaning the success of Bitcoin, both in terms of how much it's risen, but now that, I don't want to say it's stabilized, but we're at least staying in some kind of range here. That clearly seems to have propelled interest in everything else. And if we were to see, for example, Bitcoin, go down to 50,000, for example, or less, what that does to the rest of the ecosystem.
Yes. Okay. So definitely this is a rising tide lifts all boats. So a lot of these other cryptocurrencies are following Bitcoin's lead. That is definitely true. But these other cryptocurrencies do have their own cultures and their own communities. So I wouldn't say they are completely dependent on Bitcoin. Another huge phenomenon in the crypto world right now is DeFi, or decentralized finance, which is more linked to Ethereum or Ether. And that's a separate phenomenon and has its own separate community, and it's used for developing different projects. So I don't think that other cryptocurrencies prices are completely tied to the fate of Bitcoin.
Hey, Kate, I have a Coinbase question for you, which is, there's a lot of excitement around Coinbase. There's going to be a huge valuation for this company. Over time, if you imagine this is going to be a huge space, you would think that there would be lots of competition in this space. And there is some today that Coinbase has to compete against, but there's not, all the Wall Street firms are not in it yet, really. I mean, what does it look like in your mind 2-3 years from now? And what does that say about the valuation of a Coinbase?
That's so interesting you bring that up. I was just reading some analyst notes on this topic. And you remember the race to the bottom with the retail brokerage firms. Everybody was slashing commissions and competing on price. Coinbase has a bit of a monopoly now. You have folks like Robinhood, but they're significantly smaller. If there's other brokerage firms that can come in, undercut Coinbase charges about 1.5% on some of those bigger trades. It's not free trading. So if there are people that can come in, offer crypto trading on an existing brokerage firm, you think of Charles Schwab, Fidelity, if they were able to offer seamless crypto trading, that could be a big threat. And that's what a lot of folks are saying. I'm reading about, the valuation could reach as high as $100 billion. Is the company worth that if there is more competition going forward?
Right. Emily, give us some of the technicals right now. We're at 58,000 on Bitcoin. What do you, just from a technical perspective, because I know you study all of this, what's the upside and downside scenario? And the reason I'm so focused on Bitcoin in this instance is I do think that despite the various ecosystems that may exist for each of the other cryptocurrencies, there is a correlation that relates to Bitcoin.
So pretty much everybody I've spoken to remains pretty bullish on Bitcoin, at least for the short term. Of course, nobody can predict the price. I mean, one of the reasons for the bullishness on Bitcoin is the institutional involvement and the institutional investment, which is a relatively new phenomenon. And that has been a key factor in pushing up Bitcoin's price. We've just seen a lot of these big name players now getting into the Bitcoin market, and we're hearing rumors of even more. I mean, you're hearing names out there like, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, and then you have these other big players like PayPal. So, this is a big part of it. I mean, I think in terms of a risk to Bitcoin, the most common risk I hear is regulatory, that there will be some sort of regulatory crackdown either in the U.S. or somewhere else.
Real quick before we go, Peter Thiel made his comments this week about the prospect that Bitcoin is being supported by China in part to destabilize the U.S. dollar, and that the U.S. government should be looking at this. Any intelligence that they are and looking at it in that context?
I don't really see any evidence that this is happening. I think, if anything, Bitcoin is a greater threat to countries like China than it is the United States. China has strict capital controls. They maintain strict control over their currency. So I don't really understand why Bitcoin would be a tool of the Chinese government.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.